Hello. King Crimson's a band. They're pretty cool. So let's uh let's learn about that. Let's get learned. Knowledge bomb yo ass. So before we get into the actual band itself, uh do a little bit of background. 1967 band named Giles, Giles and Fripp. Two brothers, Michael Giles and Peter Giles, and guitarist Robert Fripp. They make one album together, Cheerful Insanity of Giles, Giles and Fripp, released on September 13th, 1969. The album wasn't popular, didn't have much commercial success. Apparently, when I was researching, found a quote from Robert Fripp that said he said it only sold 500 copies, but I couldn't find a source for that. Like while they were doing all this, Peter Giles leave the band. So Fripp was like, "Hey yo, I got this dude, Greg Lake. I know him. He's pretty good." And he comes in, and then by November 30th, 1968, the very first incarnation of the band had been formed. So that's how they got formed. That's how King Crimson happened. Pretty cool, right? So now we got all that preliminary bullshit out of the way. Let's get to actual King Crimson. So they began rehearsing on January 13th, 1969. They were doing some pretty cool stuff. Here's a quote from Peter Sinfield saying, "If it sounded at all popular, it was out. So it had to be complicated, had to be more expansive chords, had to have strange influences. If it sounded like too simple, we'd make it more complicated. We'd play it in 7/8 or 5/8 just to show off." That's pretty dope. It's pretty cool. So they got like their first big like taste of success, I guess, on July 5th, 1969, where they opened for the Rolling Stones in Hyde Park in front of like around 500,000 people. I'll show a little snippet of it here. I'll leave a link to it in the description because it's just cool to watch. Anyway, their debut album, The Court of the Crimson King, was released on the 10th of October 1969, and it was very critically acclaimed, and it's considered one of the most influential prog rock albums. It's pretty fucking cool. If you've heard of King Crimson, it's probably because of this album. And even Kanye West, fucking Kanye, sampled this shit on Power. If you're curious about the actual musical content of the album, I'll just do a little quick rundown. Um, 21st Century Schizoid Man, sort of like a like a early-ish like metal type of song. It's really good. I Talk to the Wind is just a nice like soft piece. It was actually originally a Giles Giles and Fripp song, but they kept it. Epitaph is my favorite song. That one's really good. It's like kind of dark and eerie. Moonchild just sounds like this. And then the title track is also pretty damn good. Also, it was the only King Crimson single to chart on the Hot 100, so just a little fun fact for you. Anyway, let's move on to the next album. So I actually really like this album. This album would be released on May 15th, 1970. It's been compared to In the Court of the Crimson King before, because like they just sound like way too similar, people say. They do sound really similar, like tone, track listing order, and just stuff like that. But it's different, it's unique, and I like it. Anyways, during their tour in the U.S., so, preceding Itcock, Ian McDonald and Michael Giles would leave the band, and the original lineup would play their last show in San Francisco on the 16th of December 1969. Because of this, Greg Lake became a little unsure of the band too now. So he would eventually go to form Emerson, Lake and Palmer, which is pretty cool. You haven't heard of them? Go listen to them. So during all this, they're trying to find a vocalist because they needed a new vocal. They needed new people. But during this time, fucking Elton John had like auditioned for him, but I guess they didn't like him enough. but that's kind of really crazy to me. I really wish that happened just 'cause I'm so curious as to what it would have sounded like King Crimson would have sounded like with fucking Elton John in it. I don't know, that's crazy. Anyway, Greg Lake agrees to stay with the band until Keith Emerson's done with whatever he's doing. So all the lead vocals on the album are sung by him, with the exception of Cadence and Cascade, which is sung by Gordon Haskell, a friend of Robert Fripp. Lizard was released in December 1970, and it would have a totally new fucking lineup. So this lineup is Robert Fripp, Peter Sinfield, they're still there. Gordon Haskell comes on from Cadence and Cascade on the previous album, and Mel Collins and Andy McCulloch join. This album has a lot more of like a jazz influence, I guess I would describe it. Yeah, it's a lot more jazzier compared to the last ones. I really like it. Circus is one of my favorite King Crimson songs. I fucking love that song. However, despite I and a lot of other people liking the album, the band members themselves, I guess, didn't like it or they don't connect with it very much. Robert Fripp has gone on to call it unlistenable. The song Indoor Games, at the end of it, Gordon Haskell just bursts out laughing. And apparently it wasn't on purpose, it was because he just thought the song was just kind of silly or bad. And that he thought he also messed up. I don't know. This is a little fun story for you. Also, the song Happy Family is a diss track on the Beatles. A little fun fact. But yeah, overall, I like this album. It's different, it's kind of jazzy. Circus is one of my favorite King Crimson tracks. Anyway, let's go to the next one. Islands would be released on December 3rd, 1971. And honestly, there's not too much to say about this album. Um, it has a new group of Robert Fripp, Mel Collins, Boz Burrell, and Ian Wallace. This would also be the last album to feature lyrics from Peter Sinfield. So sad, he's gone after this one. But yeah, there's just not a lot to say. It's just kind of like a whatever album. It's good. I like Ladies of the Road, even though the lyrics are pretty like sexist and kind of fucked up. It's been a while since I listened to it, but I'm pretty sure. Um, it's more jazz. It improves on the jazz, I guess, from the last album. It's jazzier. It's like a continuation of that. But yeah, it's just kind of I don't know. There's not a lot to say. That's the most I can say about it. But yeah, um, let's go to the next one. All right, we're getting to the fucking meat of this shit. This is when shit gets good. So totally new lineup. We got Robert Fripp, John Wetton, Bill Bruford, the original drummer from Yes, Jamie Murr, and David Cross. This album was released on March 23rd, 1973, and has like a pretty strong like jazz fusion influence, and it gets like some really heavy points in the album. Not I wouldn't say heavy metal, but it's almost there, sort of. It's really good in my opinion. Honestly, if someone who is not familiar with the band or like this type of music, they would think this sounds terrible. I had to listen to this album a couple times before I actually started to enjoy it. I know that sounds bad, but like once you know what's going on and you kind of realize it, it's good. Although I'll just say that that's mostly more like talking about the title tracks. The Book of Saturday is a really good song. Exiles is a really good song. Easy Money is a bit more out there, but that's also really good. Overall, I really like this album. It's good. Um, yeah, check it out. I've realized that this has gone from like a lore video, quote unquote, to just more like an album review, but fuck it, I'm rolling with it. Anyways, this album would only have four members instead of the five from the last album. Jamie Murr would leave, but the four would remain. The rest of them would remain. So this album was released on March 29th, 1974, and features a heavy amount of improv. The only tracks that were recorded entirely in a studio were The Great Deceiver and Lament. Everything else is purely improv from live, and some things have been overdubbed in studio. But for the most part, like I know We'll Let You Know and Trio, those are completely improv songs. So that's pretty cool fact. It's like a studio album slash live album. It's cool. It's unique. Great Deceiver has it's a good song. It opens a little bit weird, has some strange lyrics. Bill Bruford's credited on Trio despite not playing a thing. Apparently, the story goes he just sat there with his drumsticks crossed over his chest, deciding not to join in because he thought it would sound better if he didn't. And that's a really good, nice song. The first time I listened to it, I didn't know it was an improv. So, that tells you something. Anyways, that's kind of just a rundown on this album. Let's, yeah, let's move on. So Red was released on October 6, 1974, and it's a fucking amazing album. It's like phenomenal, dude. It's way heavier than the past two, so if you're into metal, definitely check this one out. You'd probably like it a lot. Prior to the making of this album, David Cross was kicked out of the band, so it's just John Wetton, and Bill Bruford, and Robert Fripp. This is probably my second favorite King Crimson album overall. It's so good. Fallen Angel is one of my favorite songs of all time. Starless is fucking amazing. That's a classic. Although I will say, if you're gonna listen to Starless, I really prefer the version from the live album USA. That's like my favorite version of the song. It really like does everything I love the song, but like it amps it up like a fuck ton. Also, Starless was originally supposed to be the title track for the previous album, Starless and Bible Black, but I guess at the time it wasn't finished yet. So we got it on this wonderful album, and I'm really glad that happened because it really makes the album, honestly. But yeah, it's a heavy album, so if you're into heavy shit, check it out. It's really good. It's considered one of their best works, to be honest. And yeah, so let's move on. Okay, forget everything I've just told you. Forget the past fucking what 12 fucking goddamn 12 minutes of this video. So we start off in I think it's 1981. I don't know, around there. I don't know the exact dates. Anyway, Robert Fripp's making a new band at this time called Discipline. It's Robert Fripp, Bill Bruford, Tony Levin, and he gets Adrian Belew on. And so during this, I guess, like initial founding period, they decided to just rename themselves to back to King Crimson and just roll with it. So, New King Crimson is pretty much a different fucking band, and the sound is completely different than everything else. So this album has like a very strong new wave feel to it, and I love it. This is my favorite King Crimson album, and in fact, this like era, they call it the Discipline era, is my favorite era of the band. And Adrian Belew is my favorite, or is one of my favorite guitarists, and he's my favorite vocalist in King Crimson. So, yeah. Musically, the album's really interesting. For instance, the song Frame by Frame does this really cool phasing shit. Like it's really cool. It's a little bit of a meme, to be honest. Um, the song Thela Hunjinji is an anagram for the heat of the jungle heat, and it's about crime. And apparently there's a story. You can actually they tell the story in the song, but I'll just tell you anyway. Um, Adrian Belew was singing. Robert Fripp wasn't convinced by his lyrics, so he tells him to go walk the block a couple times, just kind of get a feel of the city. And while he was doing that, he gets fucking mugged. The song actually, and he comes back and he tells the story, and Robert Fripp's fucking recording him while he tells the story, and then they put that in the fucking song.
So suddenly, these two guys appear in front of me, stop real aggressive.
So it's cool as fuck. Um, Save time. That's that's all I got on Discipline. My favorite King Crimson album. Definitely check it out. Yeah. All right. So B was released on June 18th, 1982, and holy shit, there is no fucking changes to the lineup. It finally fucking happened. You got a second album that was the same fucking group from the album before it. This is fucking insane. Holy shit. Anyways, this album was a lot of the lyrics are inspired by the Beat Writers. Which if you don't know what that is, it's the Beat Generation was a literary subculture movement started by a group of authors whose work explored and influenced American culture and politics in the post-war era. It's like 1950s and shit. This album kind of picks up where Discipline left off. In fact, I'm pretty sure the opening song "Neil and Jack and Me" um, it's supposed to like actually pick up where the song and I guess album Discipline left off, because it's cool. I like the song. I like this album a lot. It's if you really like Discipline and if you like new wave, check this one out. Um, the song Requiem caused a lot of drama within the band. Adrian Belew had told Robert Fripp to leave at one point, and they didn't hear from him for like 3 days, I think it was. Adrian Belew has gone on to call Beat or say that Beat was the most awful record-making experience in my life, and I would never choose to repeat it. And that Robert Fripp has said that at the time, Bill and Adrian thought that Beat was better than Discipline. For me, this is an indication of how far the band had already drifted from its original vision. Yeah. And both Adrian Belew and Bill Bruford have said that the songs Heartbeat and Two Hands should not have been on the album. Don't know why, but that's all I have found on that. Anyway, album, I like it. Commercially, it was successful. So, you know, yeah. Three of a Perfect Pair was released on March 27th, 1984. And just like the previous album, it's still the same lineup and it continues the themes, or I don't know the theme, but it's still new wave. However, it introduces they started diving into some newer or like some stuff that they really haven't done before. So the first side of the album, so I guess like the A side, is all very new wave and very much akin to the previous two albums. However, the other side um, is more industrial. Yeah, it's industrial. And Robert Fripp is quoted as saying, "The album presents two distinct sides of the band's personality, which has caused at least as much confusion for the group as it has the public and the industry. The left side is accessible, the right side is excessive." If you ever played the game Kenshi, this album kind of gives, I guess it gives off Kenshi vibes, if you know what I mean. In specific, the B side, the songs New Ages and Industry, I actually will regularly listen to when I play Kenshi. Those songs are really heavy, but it's kind of that feel, like arid, acrid. I don't know if that's the right word. Empty, industrial. It's industrial. Gonna throw in some fun facts because you know a motherfucker loves those. The album cover is actually supposed to be like a simplified version of the album cover from Larks, Tongues, and Aspic. A rising phallic object represents a male solar deity about to penetrate the crescent figure, a female lunar deity. Uh, yeah, this motherfucker loves fun facts. And yeah, that's three of a perfect pair. Check it out. Okay, so for these last three albums, um, I'm gonna be real with y'all. I'm pulling this out my ass. These are my least listened to albums. It's not like I don't like them. I do. It's just they're just my least listened to. So there's not my I don't know too much about them comparatively to my knowledge that I know about the rest of their discography. This one is like a lot less. Thrak was released on April 3rd, 1995, and has a lineup of Robert Fripp, Adrian Belew, Tony Levin, Trey Gunn, Bill Bruford, and Pat Mescalado. So a lot of the times, whenever I see stuff or I'm like looking into this album, I'll see the term double trio thrown around, and that's in reference to two guitarists, two bassists, and two drummers, which is pretty cool. Musically, this album's kind of different. Not really, but it kind of takes everything we've heard from King Crimson in the past and throws it together. Has a lot of those like mixed melodies, like the polyrhythms and shit we had a lot of during the 80s, the Discipline era, and it has those really nice heavy moments that you didn't really get during the 80s era that were really prevalent during whenever John Wetton was in the band. So Larks, Starless and Bible Black, Red. It's kind of like just a kind of like a culmination of everything that's happened, in my opinion. It's a good listen, but it also kind of has that 90s feel too, and it keeps it's just like a culmination of everything they've done so far, and it's honestly really cool. But yeah, like I said, these next albums, this one included, I don't really know as much about them. I just haven't listened to them as much. So sorry if it seems a bit bare bones. So, the Construction of Light was released on May 23rd, 2000. Y2K, New Millennium, pretty fucking awesome. So Bill Bruford and Tony Levin had both left the band, unfortunately. End of an era, quite literally. This album's just kind of, I guess it's just okay. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't feel as King Crimson as a lot of their other stuff, or as like everything else before it. Even Robert Fripp has said that it doesn't convey the power of the music to a greater extent than any of the studio albums. Which, yeah, yeah, it's just kind of. I do like the title track, and it's not a bad album. It's just kind of oversh. Comparatively, it's just kind of whatever. It's got like Island Syndrome and something. You know what I mean? Yeah, there's a Lark's Tongue and Aspic Part 4. That's pretty cool. Part 3 was on Three of a Perfect Pair. I don't know if I mentioned that. It's been a week since I recorded that, so who knows. But yeah, so Part 4 is on this album. It's pretty neat. But I guess that's all I got to say. There's just not a lot. It's just kind of it's not their best work. Yeah, that's just the way I can put it. It's not bad. It's not their best work. We made it. The last album. I'm almost fucking done. This is The Power to Believe, and I believe I'm gonna finish this video. Fucking finally. Anyways, The Power to Believe was released on March 4th, 2003. This is the only album I'm fucking older than. Let's go. I can say I'm older than a King Crimson album. I guess that's cool. This is a metal album. Um, yeah, I can firmly say that this is I guess it'd be progressive metal, right? That's a genre, I think. Yeah. Um, so it's a metal album. It's not like, oh, well, it's a little, no, it's a metal album. I know I said Red was pretty heavy, but this one gets pretty heavy. So if you're into metal, definitely check this one out as well. Honestly, check out this one, Construction. Those ones are, it's pretty, it's up there with that feeling. Um, let's see. It features Lark's Tongue and Aspic Part 5, except that's not what it's called. It's called Level 5. I don't know why they decided to do away. I don't know. It's Level 5 now. Um, this is a you can feel it. It's a King Crimson album, man. It really has that feeling, and it kind of excites me a little bit. If you can't tell from my manner of speaking. I don't know. I actually really like this album. Despite not listening to it a ton, I was re-listening to it while thinking of like I guess what to say here. And yeah, I actually really like this album. It's really good. Um, I can't think I don't really have too much to say, unfortunately. So I guess I'm gonna end this portion now. But I would check this one out for sure. It's up there with the must check out albums. Yeah, so that's King Crimson. We haven't had a studio album since 2003. There's been live albums. I guess the closest thing would be A Scarcity of Miracles, but that's projects. It's not really King Crimson, but it basically is. I don't know. See, yeah, the band, throughout the past, I guess, 2 decades, they've been touring. I don't know if they're going to tour anymore in the future. I got to see them live in 2021. Look there. You can see them taking pictures of us. It's pretty cool. They don't. I would have taken pictures during, but there's a strict no photos during the show policy, which I respect that. Anyways, yeah, I wanted this video to be a lot more about the history of the band and the members themselves, but that would have taken way too long, and I'm sure there's already better videos about that out there. So just decided to do a little introduction, I guess, like via the albums. Anyways, if you made it this far, thanks for watching, and hopefully you can get into them, because that was kind of the point of this video. All right, see ya.